What's up, y'all? So I titled this video, Shedeur Sanders outplayed most quarterbacks he faced in 2025. And this is an unequivocal fact that I'm going to back up with some evidence. Okay, so let's get right into it. Shedeur Sanders' first game out the gate. I'm not even going to include the Baltimore Ravens game. All right, we all knew he was not prepared for that game. I'm not going to count that game at all. I'm going to count his 7 starts that he had with the Cleveland Browns in 2025. Starting in Vegas, I was live in effect for that game. I saw all of that action live in Las Vegas. It was a great debut. Shedeur went 11 for 20, 209, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. What did Geno Smith do in that game? Well, I do recall Geno Smith being on his back a whole lot. Okay, isn't QBR supposed to be quarterback sacks? Geno took 10. And I want to say that Geno Smith had a better QBR at the end of the day than Shedeur Sanders, which is baffling because he took 10 sacks and the Raiders scored 10 points. So how you figure Geno Smith is going to have a better QBR than Shedeur Sanders in that matchup? That makes no sense. But to the eye test. We're going with the eye test, and we're going to go with some stats as well. Geno Smith did throw for more yards than Shedeur in that game. I think he ended up with 270, but he also threw the ball like 44 times. So the yards per attempt wasn't great. The yards were more, but Shedeur had over 10 yards per pass attempt in his first start. That's excellent. Pass per attempt over 10 yards. So let's move on to the next game. We got Shedeur Sanders against Brock Purdy for the 49ers. What did Shedeur do in that game? Well, Shedeur only ended up with a 93.6 passer rating over Brock Purdy, who had an 83.7. Now, Cleveland didn't win the game. That really wasn't Shedeur's fault too much. The game was well within balance. The game was 10-8 going into the third quarter. Halfway through the third quarter, Kevin Stefanski, in his infinite wisdom, decides, hey, let's not punt the ball. Our defense is playing great against the 49ers, a pretty good team. You know what? Down 10-8. We have the ball. 7 minutes left in the third quarter. Let's go for it on our own 33-yard line. What are we doing? Punt the ball, play some defense, give Shedeur at least a chance to go back-to-back wins. Kevin Stefanski goes for it. They don't get it. The Niners score again. They're down. Cleveland's down 17-8. Gage Larvadam muffs a punt. Later, I think in the third quarter, the Niners, they score again really fast. It gets out of hand really quick. I think the game ended 27-8. So in 2 plays that had nothing to do with Shedeur. Shedeur on that 4th down didn't even have the ball in his hand. It was a fumble exchange. It was a tight end sneak. Shedeur's just chilling back there. This is a theme with Kevin Stefanski. That's why he's fired. In crucial points this year, he did not use Shedeur Sanders properly. And Andrew Berry alluded to that in the press conference he had after they fired him. If you listen to the press conference, he pretty much is like, hey, there's situational football where Kevin didn't live up to what he was supposed to do. Not putting Shedeur Sanders in the greatest possible situations for success. That's why Kevin Stefanski's not there. That's why they're going to bring in a coach that can get the most out of Shedeur and actually utilize him in crucial situations in a game. All right, so moving forward, Shedeur's best game of the year with the Tennessee Titans. That was definitely a legendary performance. Okay, 364, 4 touchdowns. Thoroughly outdo Cam Ward. Cam Ward, they did get the win, but let's talk about Kevin Stefanski again. Sabotaging Shedeur Sanders' progress. So, multiple times in the game, Shedeur brought the Cleveland Browns down from 10 points in the game. 17 points, my bad. They were down 17-3 at one point, and they were down 31-17 at one point. Shedeur brought them back both times. So, Shedeur gets some within 2 points. Scores a touchdown. Great fade route to the back pylon, back left corner of the end zone to Harold Fannin, his favorite target. So what does Kevin Stefanski do? After Shedeur, down 31-23, drives them down the field. After he scored the first time to get them within 8, He goes for it on he goes for it on fourth. Not goes for it. Goes for two instead of just simply kicking the extra point. So instead of being down 7, like a good coach would have you down, they're down 8. So Shedeur does everything he's supposed to. He goes down, scores. It's 31-29. And what does Kevin Stefanski do? He takes him out the game. Takes him out the game. In crucial points this year, when Shedeur was a quarterback, Kevin Stefanski either did run a play for Shedeur where you can let him make a play, or totally didn't have him on the field. Just crazy. And he's outperforming all of these quarterbacks. Shedeur Sanders unequivocally played better, probably than 5 out of the 7 quarterbacks he's faced in 2025. I'm only giving Joe Burrow played better than him, but he got the win in that game. Only game this entire season where Shedeur Sanders got thoroughly outplayed and the Cleveland Browns lost the game was the Chicago Bears game. You can't, even the most hardened Shedeur Sanders fan, even the most hardened Shedurian out there, Caleb Williams outplayed Shedeur. That was Shedeur's worst game. I mean, Jerry Jeudy had something to do with it, but he still had two other interceptions on top of that. It just was not a good performance. Although inside of that game, he did make some nice throws. He still had 2 throws in that game, dynamic plays over 30 yards. So within even his worst game, he showed flashes that, I'm still here. And actually in that game, if Jerry Jeudy catches that ball instead of having to intercept it, that game has a whole entire different trajectory. So Jerry Jeudy really was to blame for Shedeur not having his best game, because that totally changed the trajectory of the game. That touchdown could have brought the Browns back within the game, I think within like 10 points or something. But instead they don't get that, and it was just all bad from there. But getting back to the Titans Browns game that I was just discussing before I got on a tangent about the Chicago game. Well, I just talked about the Chicago game, so I don't need to rehash that. Getting back to the Titans game. So Shedeur, they take him out. They're down 2 points. And what do? They execute the worst trick play. And people are trying to defend Kevin Stefanski. I swear to goodness, Kevin Stefanski gets more people defending him than he deserves credit for. They're like, well, I mean, if they would have executed it perfectly, it would have succeeded. What? Your quarterback had 4 touchdowns accounted for. Shedeur was cooking that game. So, in your infinite wisdom, you entrusted 2 rookies to execute a trick play instead of putting the ball in Shedeur Sanders' hand, letting him either make a play with his legs, which he did in the game. He scrambled for like 12 yards for a touchdown, or with his arm. He displayed that he threw 3 touchdown passes in that game. So you didn't trust him to make the play. I wouldn't even mind if Shedeur went out on his shield. If he wasn't able to execute the second 2-point conversion, at least give him the opportunity to either succeed or fail in that scenario. It's so many countless times Kevin Stefanski has undermined Shedeur. And it went back to the preseason where he didn't allow him to try to go down the field and win that Rams game. You know why? Because he knew if he succeeded in that Rams game that people are going to point to that all year. Well, Shedeur looked good in his worst game in the preseason. Even though he looked bad the entire game, he was able to drive the team down the field for a winning field goal. He would have had to answer all those questions, and he knew that in the back of his head. If he allowed Shedeur to do that in the preseason, reporters were going to correctly ask, hey, well, we saw Shedeur lead a game-winning drive in the Rams game. Well, Dylan Gabriel's playing bad. Why aren't you going to Shedeur? Shedeur has shown that he is capable of rising to the occasion when it was presented to him. We saw that in the last game of the year. Shedeur didn't play good the entire game against the Rams. I mean, not the Rams, the Cincinnati Bengals in the last game. And what did Shedeur do? Rose to the occasion. Led the Browns 45 yards to kick a game-winning field goal to win the game over Cincinnati Bengals. We saw it in full, in living color. But, I mean, Kevin Stefanski ain't there anymore. So, whoever this next coach is for Cleveland, I'm excited about, because I'm excited for Shedeur's maturation process with the next offensive coordinator slash head coach that comes in. Let's see. Jerry Jeudy let down Caleb. Already went over that. Don't need to really gloss over that anymore about the Bears game. We all know the Bears game was Shedeur's worst game. Jerry Jeudy had something to do with that, but Caleb definitely outplayed him in that game. All right, so let's go to the Buffalo Bills game. Buffalo Bills, Cleveland Browns. Buffalo 23, Cleveland 20 in that game. And Josh Allen threw for 130 yards. It seemed like Josh Allen was scared to throw the ball in that game. So Shedeur out threw Josh Allen in that game, the MVP, 157 to 130. Okay. Also, Shedeur's completion percentage was 69%. Josh Allen's was 63%. So he outplayed him in several aspects of the game. Now, Shedeur, that was a game where Shedeur had 2 interceptions, so that was not good. But he's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. We just saw Josh Allen have 4 turnovers in a playoff game. So turnovers happen. Okay, they happen. Difference is Josh Allen is in year 8, making those turnovers in the most crucial game for the Buffalo Bills this year. And Shedeur, it was in his 5th start. And sure, he had 2 interceptions in that game. All right, I'm not going to gloss over that, but there were portions of the game, there were stats where Shedeur was better than Josh Allen in. Okay, 157, 69% completion percentage. People are, they were talking about, Shedeur, the completion percentage is low. In that game, he was tasked with, not throwing the ball deep. People was like, hey, they implemented a game plan and Shedeur executed it. They was like, all right, Shedeur, we know you can throw the deep passes. We want you to be on time in this game. And Shedeur was on time. Everything was dink and dunk, but it was short. And Shedeur was tasked with something. And he was tasked. He did a good job with that. The 2 interceptions, he kind of got away from, what they wanted him to do. But outside of those 2 throws, 20 for 29, 157, not a great yards per attempt. But 69% completion percentage, that's kind of where you want your quarterback to be, up in that high 60s, low 70 range, if at all possible. Let's go on to the next game. Aaron Rodgers, also another game. Aaron Rodgers was scared to get sacked by Myles Garrett. Aaron Rodgers in that game, outplayed by Shedeur. Okay, outplayed by Shedeur in a win. In a game Pittsburgh had to have. Shedeur had more yards passing than Aaron Rodgers. I believe he ended up with 180-something yards in that game to Aaron Rodgers 160. And Aaron Rodgers, he was held in check most of that game. Aaron Rodgers, most of his yards came in the last possession of the game. So I'm just saying, he had more yards than a legend in a game that mattered for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That matters. And the Browns won that game, a divisional game. Shedeur Sanders outplayed a living legend in Aaron Rodgers. Let's not gloss over that, people. Let's not gloss over that he outdueled. Now, outduel is a strong word. They only scored 13 points, 13-6, but that's what the game required. The game required that from Shedeur. Shedeur had the only touchdown throw in that game, only touchdown period in that game. So let's not gloss over in a defensive battle that Shedeur had the only touchdown accounted for in that game. I didn't see Aaron Rodgers throw a touchdown, and all we heard all week after that game, what do we hear? What was the narrative surrounding Aaron Rodgers for why he didn't play that well? People are saying, he didn't have DK Metcalf. So who's was Shedeur Sanders throwing to this season? It's funny that media, when they kind of like a quarterback, they gave every excuse possible for Aaron Rodgers. Well, he didn't have DK Metcalf. Well, he didn't have this. Well, he didn't have that. Well, if they had that, they would have blew out the Browns. Well, they didn't. Well, guess what Cleveland Browns didn't have? Cleveland Browns didn't have their leading rusher in Quinshon Judkins in the game. Harold Fannin left that game with a groin injury. That was a touchdown in the game that was accounted for. Harold Fannin had a touchdown, but he re-aggravated his groin. So the Browns didn't have their top target for Shedeur. They didn't have their top running back for Shedeur. They might as well not have had their top receiver because Jerry Jeudy been cheeks the entire season. So Cleveland was working with backup running back. There's a practice squad tight end and a wide receiver who led the league in drops. So that's what Shedeur was working with. So don't give me any excuse about Aaron Rodgers when Shedeur was working with a lot of practice squad guys, kind of like the preseason game against the Carolina Panthers. So what are we talking about here? Also, all right, let's go on to the next game, the last game, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow did outplay him. He outdueled him, so to speak. I think Joe Burrow ended up with 3 touchdowns in that game, 1 pick accounted for, a big pick in the game. That was a big pick in that game because the Browns returned that for a touchdown, and then they returned another touchdown, scoop and score for a touchdown. So the defense really came to play. The defense came to play in the last 2 games, really helped Shedeur out because they let him down in the Titans game. They really let him down. Shedeur played good enough to win that Titans game. Okay, because all I heard was, well, yeah, he threw for 364 and had 4 touchdowns, but they didn't win the game. That wasn't Shedeur's fault. They was really trying to pin the 1 interception Shedeur had on that game was the reason they lost. There were really people trying to spin that narrative, more so than our defense giving up 31 points. Also, your coach implementing a terrible trick play in the game instead of rolling with the hot hand on 2-point conversion, which he caused y'all to have because he went for 2 points instead of just kicking the extra point. Andre Smith's been automatic this year. He would have made the extra point. You would have been down 7. And then you could have kicked another extra point. Then you could have took that game to overtime. And then you could have won that game. And Shedeur, the whole narrative around Shedeur would have been different. They would have been like, in his best game this year, he won 2. I don't think Kevin Spacey wanted that smoke. And he purposely torpedoed that game personally by implementing the worst trick play I've ever seen in my entire life. Man, I'm fired up at the end of this video. But yeah, Shedeur, outplayed by Joe Burrow. But in that game, Shedeur did not play well. But Shedeur, he showed some things in that game, especially at the end of the game where he drove his team down the field for a winning field goal. And that matters. Last 2 games of the year against divisional opponents, Shedeur showed a lot of grit, a lot of moxie, didn't have his best games, but he led the Browns to victory, and he led them to a field goal drive in that game. And that's my case. Shedeur outplayed most quarterbacks in 2025. Outplayed Geno Smith. Outplayed Brock Purdy. Outplayed Cam Ward. Got outplayed by Caleb thoroughly, for sure. What was the next one? Josh Allen. That's at the worst. That's equal, or Shedeur slightly better than Josh played in that game. He played better than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers only mustered 6 points. Didn't play better than Joe Burrow, but he led a game-winning drive in that game. So yeah, that's 2025. So when you talk about Shedeur, please bring the narrative up that against the quarterbacks he faced, he fared better than the majority of the quarterbacks he went against. See, people they wanna have a compilation of stats. They want to be like, oh well, Shedeur had this and he compiled this for the whole season. Well, let's go game by game. Let's break this down. Did he play better than this quarterback he went up against? Yes. 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 No. No. 5 out of 7. Pretty good. What was Shedeur record at the end of the year? 3-4. Could have been 4-3. They should have won that Titans game. They were in the Buffalo game, so it could have been 4-3, 5-2. They got outplayed in the not the Buffalo game. They got outplayed in the Niners game, and they got outplayed in the Bears game. All right, so I mean, more often than not, Shedeur played better than the quarterback he went up against. The stats don't reflect that, but you need to just watch the game, and see what it is. And you have to add in what Shedeur had to work with. Shedeur had the worst offensive line to work with, and also Shedeur had the worst receivers to work with. You have to add everything in context. All right, KSK Sports rolling out. Rich stuff time, baby. It's Shedeur Sanders time in 2026. It is what it is. It's about the Browns, baby. Let's go. Peace.